attention, please. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. My name is daughter Yisrayl Abel, and I want to serve you forever as the feast is starting very soon. It's now time to start finding your seats for Sabbath services. Shabbat Shalom. My name is daughter of Yisrayl Abel, and I want to serve you forever as a feast is starting very soon. It's now a privilege and honor to present to you the sons and daughters of Yisrael now entering the sanctuary. It's a privilege and honor to turn it over to one of the daughters of Yisrayl Hawkins. Shalom. My name is Danielle. I want to serve you as a priest starting very soon. The Peaceful Solution Character Education Program helps you learn to rejoice by using self-control and learning to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. Please welcome the next two speakers. Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. The title of my speech is Responsible Obedience. There is a great teacher. He is actually the greatest teacher in the world who has taught us that we are all children. And as children, we have a great responsibility. That great responsibility is to be obedient. As you have probably guessed, my topic today is on responsibility. Consider this. It is not only our responsibility to take care of our belongings, to maintain our cleanness, and to fulfill our duties. Who taught you to take care of your belongings? It was your authorities, our authorities. So when we are obedient to our authorities, we are being responsible. Being responsible from the Peaceful Solution Kids Education Program Responsibility Unit Page 3 means you're someone others can count on to fulfill your duties and obligations. In this way, if everyone was taught the positive character trait of responsibility, we would have responsible authorities who would teach their children diligently to be more responsibility individuals, which in turn will produce obedient children who will take care of their belongings, fulfill their duties, and most important will be positive influence to others, and the ripple effect will produce a peaceful exit for all. May I have my slide, please? Remember to respond solely to your authorities, and we will all live in peace and secure through all eternity. Let's be responsible, obedient. With this, I'll turn the services over to the next speaker.
Sure, you may be seated. I would like to speak to you about the positive character trait, forgiveness. Please turn with me to 1 Kepha, chapter 1, verse 15 to 16. 1 Kepha, chapter 1, verse 15 to 16, found on page 957. But as he who called you is holy, so you also become holy in all you conduct. Because it is written, "Be holy, for I am holy." Notice the word conduct. According to www.google.com, conduct means the manner in which a person behaves, your actions, deeds, and habits. Do we conduct ourselves at the house of Yahweh? Are we quick to forgive others, or do we let root of bitterness grow? The word forgive in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, Moral Actions on page 20 means to refrain from holding anger or resentments towards someone who has wronged you. We know that the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program is the law of Yahweh. It is simplified form. So let's go to laws of Yahweh that speaks about forgiveness. Turn with me to Matthew chapter 18, verse 21 to 22, found on page 746. Matthew 18, verse 21 to 22, found on page 746. Then Kepha came to him and asked, "Teacher, how often shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him for 7 times?" Yeshua said to him, "I do not say to you for 7 times, but for 70 times 7. Did you notice Yeshua, our high priest, answer? Praise Yahweh. How many times should we forgive each other? 70 times 7? We should always be quick to forgive always. Not holding on to anger. But where did Yeshua learn this trait from? Please turn with me to Exodus 34, verse 7, found on page 73. Here we have Yahweh, our Father, 13 attributes, our positive character traits. Notice verse 7. Keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgressions and sin. Yes, sisters, he learned it from Yahweh. Please turn to Matthew chapter 5, verse 48, found on page 732. Therefore, become perfect, just as your Father who is in heaven is perfect. Sisters, let's aim to conduct ourselves like Yahweh and Yeshua, who set a perfect example before us, teaching us to forgive. Please stand and welcome our next teacher.
And now it's an honor to turn the services over to the Queens of the House of Yahweh. Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. All right. So throughout the feast, our theme has been rejoicing. Now, positive law number 54 says, every household must appear before Yahweh and rejoice at the feast. Deuteronomy 16, verses 14 and 16. Being that it is a law, we're required to do it. Just like it is a law that we must eat unleavened bread for the feast of Passover, count 50 days for the feast of Pentecost, and eat underneath the sukkah for the feast of Tabernacles. It is a law that we rejoice at the feast. Like all things, Yahweh has a purpose and a reason for telling us to rejoice at the feast. When you rejoice, you increase the serotonin levels in your brain, which enables us to learn. Rejoicing helps build friendships and practice the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. Rejoicing brings acceptance, it brings tolerance, and it strengthens positive interactions. Now, what are some of the things we rejoice about at the feast? For one, we're in the protected place. We are learning. We are growing in wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. We get to see our great overseer and also the family of Yahweh we only get to see at the feast. And last but not least, definitely not least, we are learning to get along with each other. For of such is of the kingdom of Yahweh. Praise Yahweh. Now what we learn at the feast, we are obligated by law to make it a part of our everyday lives. When the feast ends, we don't simply stop rejoicing. The world is a troublous place. Wherever you look, you see the pain, you see the suffering, you see the hatred, the violence. When we're here, we see it on the screen, but we are in the protected place. Remember Psalms 91 verse 1 says, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High will abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Side note C says, these are my feast, and my reward for keeping them is my protection. The word dwell from the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance means to remain. Let me repeat that. It means to remain. Overseer says he does not read sentences, he reads words. And just this one word, dwell. We can bring lots of sermons, but it also goes with the word form. Soon, the feast will end, and we will return to our temporary homes. And despite the issues in our everyday lives and the world at large, we must find joy in Yahweh every single day. Part of rejoicing is being thankful and content in what we have and being content in what we are striving to be. Perfect before Yahweh. Perfect in whom he is forming us to be, for he is the potter and we are the clay. Let us strive to keep these things in mind. Learning to rejoice will only enrich our lives. But what is life? It's such a small four-letter word, but it means so much. So out of curiosity, I Googled it, and this is what I got. Life has no meaning. Each of us has meaning, and we bring it to life. It is a waste to be asking the question when you are the answer. Another one says, what is the meaning of life? Other people. Our prime purpose in this life is to help others, and if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. The meaning of life is life. So in essence, life is what we make it. Take this analogy for example. You walk into a restaurant, you sit down and you scan the menu. The waitress comes to you and she asks you, what will it be? And you give her your order, say a cheeseburger with fries and a soda. The waitress takes your order and she goes back to the kitchen. And then she comes back and gives you exactly what you wanted, plus it's even better. I say this because every time we speak with our words, it's like we are placing our order with the universe. Our words dictate dictate our reality. Another way of looking at this is called the law of attraction. That positive attracts positive, that negative attracts negative. If we say we will achieve more, then we will achieve more. If we say we will rejoice, by all means, rejoice. So as the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program tells us in the Character Unit on page 80, set our minds in advance. So set our minds in advance to rejoice, to be thankful, and to give genuine praise to Yahweh every single day of our lives. The speakers today, ranging from all ages, will continue speaking on rejoicing and how learning and practicing the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program helps us to rejoice. And without further ado, I welcome up the next speaker.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. My name is Azali, and the title of my speech is Accepting Me, Accepting Others. Our great overseer has taught us to stand up for acceptance and tolerance by preparing our minds in advance to combat intolerance on a day-to-day basis. We must always remember to be respectful and kind to people of different background and of different physical appearances, considering that they are aspects of our lives that we cannot change. Looking at everyone here in the audience, I see that we are all different in appearances. However, that does not matter. For we are all unique individuals who are able to build a positive moral character and develop traits such as honesty, consideration, empathy, and helping each other regardless of our physical differences. So now, I would like to tell you a story. Melissa and Sarah were walking to the nearby mall. When they were almost there, Melissa saw an old lady who looked about to be 2 feet tall. Melissa called out to Sarah and said, "Oh, look, there's a tiny old lady with a suitcase twice her size." Melissa laughed out loud and said to Sarah, "The suitcase needs to be carrying the tiny old lady." Sarah did not think it was funny, for she had been taught not to ridicule anyone, and certainly not a tiny old lady. Just then, an old man passed by Melissa and Sarah. The old man seemed upset that the old lady was being ridiculed by Melissa, and he said to Melissa, "Listen, young lady, who are you cursing? Are you cursing the Creator or His creation?" Melissa was embarrassed and wanted to apologize, but the old man said, "It's too late now. You better start treating people with respect, no matter what they look like." In conclusion, let us remember that we are all different in appearances because Yahweh made us so. So let us stand up for acceptance and tolerance, just like our great overseer has taught us. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the next speaker.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. The title of my speech is Being Honest Helps Us to Rejoice. The word rejoice means to show joy, delight, or to be exceedingly glad. Do you know you can rejoice when you practice the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program? Developing the character trait of honesty helps us to rejoice when we make right choices. To be honest means to tell the truth, to be fair, and not to steal. When we are honest, we help others to rejoice because they can trust us to do the right thing. When we tell the truth, we don't feel guilty, or afraid, or ashamed. Think about it. When people lie, cheat, or steal, what is there to rejoice about? They feel guilty, afraid. How can we rejoice when we get into trouble? We lose privileges or get into trouble. There is no joy or delight in being dishonest because you know that you did something wrong. When someone steals and goes to prison, they are not rejoicing, and neither are their families. There is only regret, sadness, and frustration. This is why we must always rejoice when we write right choices. Because honesty brings joy to yourself and to others. And with this, I will turn it over to the next speaker.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. As you know, the theme for this feast is learning to rejoice. The word rejoice means to be glad, to take delight in something. Some ways I rejoice during the feast are serving others by working at the cafeteria, being a teacher, and setting an example for all those around me. One way in which we can rejoice is to show respect to others. It is a proven fact that when you are respectful to others, it makes you more joyful. Even a simple smile can lift someone's spirits. Saying shalom to others when you pass by them is another way we can show respect. To others. We should always treat others the way we want to be treated. Also, by using kind words like please, thank you, and may I is what Yahweh looks for in us. In the book of Yisrayl, Let the Children Also Come to Me, page 22, it says, Yahweh's plan from the beginning was to create within us a character that refused to break any of his laws. Unlike the animals and Malachim Yahweh created, he put in us an ability to consider and grow in the knowledge and to develop the ability to consider and think. Man has the ability to learn total righteousness and follow that righteousness within wavering. If you look up the word respect, you'll see it means to show care and concern. We need to follow Yeshua's example and rejoice by showing respect to others and going on the straight and narrow path. We are blessed to have the greatest teacher in the world, Yisrayl Hawkins. Who has been training us and showing us the way to eternal life with the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program and Yahweh's 613 Laws of Peace. I want to encourage you to study the books that the House of Yahweh puts out and to study so when you're asked to speak, you'll be ready. If you will please stand. And I would like to turn it over to the next speaker.
Shalom, everyone. My name is Mashima. You may be seated. The title of my speech is Being Thankful is the Right Thing to Do. Have you ever had a time where you were not thankful? Well, I have, and I will share the story with you. One day, I was waiting for something to eat, so I kept waiting and waiting, and I finally got something to eat. So I said, why do I need to eat this? I don't want this now. This is why you should be thankful. In the character unit, page 15, it shows what being thankful means. Being thankful means to be conscious of the benefits that you have received. Thankful people find joy in what they have instead of worrying or being upset about what they don't have. Many people that are out there in the world are starving and they have nothing to eat or drink, not even a little crumb of food, because that shows every 3 to 6 seconds a person dies of hunger. 70% of them are children. This means that during my 3-minute speech, 162 people will have died. Would you want to be like that? We should be thankful for everything Yahweh gives us, even if it may not be exactly what we are wanting. If you are not thankful for what you have, you might not get anything else. As you see, being thankful is the key thing. We are all working on being in the kingdom. It's almost here. We have to be thankful in order to enter into the kingdom. Being thankful shows that we honor Him as the only source of power in the universe. Without Yahweh, we wouldn't even exist. Being thankful is the right thing to do. Positive law number 19 commands us to be thankful to Yahweh in prayer, praise, and deed. Being thankful is also contagious. When others see us being thankful, this reminds them to be thankful. So let's set our mind in advance to always be thankful for the benefits that we have received, and the glory to give great Father Yahweh for His worthy to be praised. And now I'd like to turn it over to the next speaker.
Hello, you may be seated. My name is Iniquity, and I will be speaking about self-control. I will be in the self-control unit, page 4, what is self-control? Self-control is controlling what you think because thoughts lead to feelings, controlling what you feel because feelings lead to actions, controlling how you behave because decisions lead to actions, which really leads to rewards or consequences. And I will now be turning over to page 8, the importance of self-control. Self-control is needed in every situation. You need self-control whether you are alone or interacting with others, at home, school, work, and even having fun. Self-control enables you to speak and behave appropriately regardless of the choices that are placed before you or the situation that you are in. In fact, self-control is so important that it is probably one of the first character traits that you were taught how to develop. Can you recall your mother telling you not to touch something because it was hot, or not to run around in the room because you could fall, and not to touch someone else's belongings because it wasn't yours? As a child, it was the job of your parents and teachers to help you develop self-control by instructing and reminding you about appropriate behavior. On page 9, you are now accountable for the decisions you make, how you behave, and how you treat others. Self-control must come from within. You must be practicing it consistently. You must be willing to guide and direct your thoughts, feelings, and actions at all times. Consistency and self-control go hand in hand. Self-control is what you do when no one is watching. And we need self-control on a daily basis to help us deal with every situation, whether it is positive or it is negative. And I now turn it over to the next speaker.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. Today my topic is kindness comes from the heart. Today I want to show you how when you are kind to others, it helps you and others to rejoice. I want to start with our words. Our words are very important. You've probably heard the saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's not true. Words are very powerful, but they hurt more than a lot of things. We've been taught that an uncontrolled tongue is like deadly poison. And it hurts, and you can't take it back. You can apologize, but that doesn't make the other person forget. In the Peaceful Solution Respect Unit, it says, saying hateful, spiteful words to show that you are upset with someone can never solve problems. In fact, it only makes the situation worse. The next time you become angry with someone, remember that the person you are angry with is still a human being and is therefore worthy of respect. Praise Yahweh. In Psalms 19, verse 14, it says, "Let the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts be once acceptable in your sight, O Yahweh, our rock and our Redeemer." Another way we can show kindness is by being thoughtful of others and their needs. Like if you see someone that needs help, step up and show servitude towards that person. Serving others is being kind. It also shows humility, laying yourself down to serve others like Yeshua did and still is doing. Another thing is being forgiving. If someone wrongs you in any way, forgive them, just as Yeshua did. Be humble and forgiving. As Khan Levi was saying, if someone steps on your toe, then say, "Sorry, my foot's too long." In Psalms 86, verse 5, it says, Psalms 86, verse 5. It says, "You, O Yahweh, are merciful and ready to forgive. You are abundant in mercy to all those who call upon you." So if Yahweh is the highest being in the universe, higher than any of us, why should we not forgive? We need to forgive our fellow brothers and sisters, just as Yahweh forgives us. Another thing we want to do is always speak positively. Greet others respectfully, because a simple greeting with a simple smile can make someone's day. I like to end with a scripture in Ephesians 4. Ephesians 4, we'll start on verse 25. It says, "Therefore, putting away lying, each one speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your wrath. For this gives place to the devil. Give her no room nor opportunity. Let him who stole steal no more, but rather let him labor, working with his hands at something proper, that he may have something to give him who has need. Let no corrupt communication, foul language, evil word proceed out of your mouth, but that which is righteous for the necessary upbuilding of the house of Yahweh, that it may minister blessings to the hearers. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of Yahweh, by which you were sealed for the day of Yahweh, for the day of redemption. Let all bitterness, wrath, rage, anger, clamor, brawling, and evil speaking, gossip, slander, blasphemy, be put away from you, along with all malice. And be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving to one another, just as Yahweh, for the Messiah's sake, has forgiven you." So let's forgive one another as Yeshua and Yahweh did, and be kind to others in every way. And with that, if you all please stand. I'd like to turn it over to the next speaker.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. The title of my speech is, "Accepting Others Will Cause Great Rejoicing." In Isaiah 2:2 and Micaiah 4:1, Yahweh tells us that the house of Yahweh will be raised above all congregations, and all nations will flow to it. This word nations here refers to all the many different people coming from many different parts of the earth. We know that number will be around 2 billion, being taught by the house of Yahweh. In that great gathering, there will be people from all different walks of life. In order for us to be able to teach and guide them, we are going to have to show them the peaceful solution concept of acceptance. With this foundation, we will be able to show them that we care about them and truly desire to help them. And through our words and actions, they will be able to see that they are valuable. Reading from the acceptance unit on page 13. Accepting others means deciding to treat them the way you would like to be treated. It means putting yourself in their shoes and asking yourself, how would I feel if someone treated me this way or made fun of me? None of us want to be made fun of, so we shouldn't do it to anyone else. The ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes is called empathy. Having empathy is an important part of accepting and having consideration of others. Now, that word empathy means to understand how others feel. When these people come to Yahweh's house, we are going to have to put ourselves in their shoes and realize these people have went through a lot. Some of them might have been refugees that have had to flee their homes because of war. Others may have lost family members, and some may be sick. But no matter what, we are going to have to show them that empathy by listening to them and understanding the things that they have went through. We are going to be their only hope they have, and they are going to be so thankful for us. One thing that we have to remember also is that people may forget the things you have said or the things that you have done for them, but one thing they will never forget is how you made them feel. And that is something that will stick with them for the rest of their life. Back to page 13 of the acceptance unit. Accepting others means understanding that they too have circumstances that are beyond their control, as well as positive traits and abilities. Again, this will be another aspect of our job, to recognize their positive traits and abilities. And just like in the book of Exodus, Yahweh called certain men to his house who were filled with wisdom, understanding, and knowledge in all manner of workmanship to help in the construction of the sanctuary. He can do this again with the people who are coming in our time period. Now, I know that it will take some time to get everything running smoothly, and we will still have problems that we will have to work out. But through practice, we will be able to overcome these problems and come together in complete unity with one another. Finishing up on page 13, accepting others simply means treating them with the same respect, empathy, and consideration that you would want to be treated with. So don't wait for the other person to be respectful to you before you show respect to them. Give them that respect, empathy, and consideration that we all deserve, because it's the right thing to do. When we show these people that we accept them and that they are valued, they will in turn do the same for others. Sisters, this is a big job we have to serve these people, but in the end, it will be so worth it. And we will all be rejoicing, as it states in, please turn to Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 43, found on page 175. Deuteronomy 32 and verse 43. It says, rejoice, O nations, with his people. Rejoice, O heavens, with him, and let all his Malachim worship him. This is speaking about a future time period when all nations, referring to people, will gather together and rejoice in front of Yahweh, because they will see that we accept them and that we are here to help them. This is such a great opportunity that we have. So let's prove to Yahweh that we can be accepting of one another, so we can all rejoice and be ready to help the 2 billion people when they come. Now I'd like to turn it over to the next speaker.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. Today I'm going to be talking about how not gossiping, but being educated can help us all rejoice at the house of Yahweh, at Yahweh's Sabbaths and feast. In the character unit on page 14 has the definition for educated, which is getting all the facts and making sure they are correct before making a decision. When we gossip, we are not being educated. Someone tells us something that someone else told them, and we go and tell some other person. When you're gossiping, you don't look into the facts. And it changes down the line. Like the first person can say, Susie Jane broke her leg and had to go to the hospital. Second person says, Susie Jane hurt her foot and had to go to the hospital. The third person says, someone hurt Susie Jane's foot and she had to leave and go to the hospital. And then the fourth person says, Susie Jane got kicked out of the house of Yahweh and now she's working in a hospital. And it keeps going on. And soon everyone's thinking Susie Jane left the house, but then on Sabbath she comes in on crutches and you go back to that person, I thought she left the house. Well, that's what so-and-so said. And then everyone starts feeling stupid because they went and told a bunch of other people that she left. Something that's completely wrong. And that's how gossiping goes. I'm sure some of us have had that one friend that you think's your best friend, and they know your deepest secrets, and you say, don't tell anyone. But then the whole world knows, and it's like, how did that occur? But no one likes that. No one likes to be gossiped about. Praise Yahweh. And that could be also known as backbiting or slandering. And the scriptures talk about that in Psalms 15, how an upright man doesn't gossip and slander. In verse 2 it says, he who walks uprightly and does righteousness, he who speaks the truth in his heart, these shall abide with you, Yahweh. These shall live in your holy hill. To his brother he does not take up a reproach, nor does he do evil to his friend, nor with his tongue does he backbite and slander. These shall abide with you, Yahweh. These shall live in your holy hill. So we don't want to backbite and slander against our brothers, our sisters, our friends. Then if we don't backbite, then it's accounted to us as righteousness. When we backbite, slander, or gossip about one another, it can hurt feelings, create problems, and cause others to not rejoice. And the scriptures also say that when you slander, you're a fool. In Proverbs 10, verse 18, it says, he who reveals hatred with lying lips, he who spreads slander is a fool. And when we hear something about someone else that may be evil, we shouldn't be going and trying to correct them, because we need to be working on our own overcoming. As Luke 6, verse 41 and 42 says, so why would you look at the speck that is in your brother's eye, but not notice the beam that is in your own eye? And how can you say to your brother, brother, let me pull out the speck that is in your eye, when you yourself cannot see the beam that is in your own eye? You hypocrite! First pull out the beam from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to pull out the speck that is in your brother's eye. So we can encourage others by setting righteous examples. In class the other day, someone asked, what do you look forward to during the feast? And someone said, following righteous examples. We have to always remember that the new people are watching, and they come from the world, and the world sins. They gossip, they slander, and every other sin on the planet. So we have to be setting righteous examples for them, showing them that the house of Yahweh does not do these things. And like I was saying, when we hear gossip, don't go try to correct it yourself or tell someone else. You have to go to the proper authorities, as Pastor said a few weeks ago. So that they can correct it. They can take it out if it's sin. That person probably has counselors, and they can correct that person. We don't have to do it for them. We should be minding our own business and focusing on the beam in our eye. Because you can try to help others, but at the end of the day, you're not growing any. You might get a little taller, but you're not learning. There's one thing that we can gossip about, and that's righteous gossip. Pastor said in the 13th book of Israel, part 1, chapter 7, he says, I didn't know there was any gossip left in the house of Yahweh. Surely they're gossiping, I said, about the work right now. You know that's the greatest gossip you could bring forth, and bring it forth to all the world, and build the house of Yahweh, build your children. Let your children hear the righteous gossip. The children are hearing the gossip anyway. You know, you may think you have it secret, but the children hear it. They talk about it to other children, and you know, this brings dishonor to the mother or the father who is bringing forth the goofy gossip. It comes straight from Satan, you know. Satan is your accuser, and if we do her job for her, we belong to Satan, and she's inspiring us. What your teacher says for you to do, you will do. The thing is to repent of her being your teacher and turn to Yahweh quickly and get this golden oil in your veins. Praise Yahweh. So let's get the gossiping out of our lives. Repent, spreading unrighteous gossip, and instead fill your mind with righteousness of the book of Yahweh and of the house of Yahweh. For my last scripture, please turn to Proverbs 4, verse 23. It says, "Guard your mind with all diligence, for out of it flows the springs of life." So you can gossip about that to others, righteous gossip. And with that, my time's up, and if you all please stand, I'd like to turn it over to the next teacher. Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. All right, so my title today is "Cool Thoughts Are Rejoicing Thoughts." As we know from the Peaceful Solution, everything begins with a thought. Also, it teaches to control your thoughts. In the Respect unit on page 33, it says, "Another aspect of developing self-respect is to be aware of your thoughts. What have you been thinking lately? Are they positive thoughts that help you build and maintain your positive character, or are they negative thoughts that make you feel bad about yourself?" And remember, a speaker was talking about the man that was constantly saying things like, "I can't remember, I have a bad memory." She said, your brain starts to believe what you're saying, and that's why we should replace negative thoughts and unrighteous thoughts with positive thoughts. We are all striving to develop the character of Yahweh, which is a positive character. If we are thinking negative thoughts that are demoralizing and causing us to think down on ourselves and others, then it will be harder for us to rejoice. If you are thinking negative thoughts, then you need to eliminate those negative thoughts and accentuate the positive. If you can turn to page 503 in your book of Yahweh, that's Proverbs 12:5. It says, "The thoughts of the righteous are right, but the advice of the wicked is deceitful." We don't want to be like the wicked, having thoughts of evil and deceit, but righteous thoughts that are not putting yourself or others down, or putting the house of Yahweh down. We must work together to build the house of Yahweh. The Peaceful Solution says, thoughts lead to feelings, and feelings lead to actions, which lead to reward or consequences. So if we are thinking things bad about the house of Yahweh, it will cause us to fall away. If we fill our minds with the things of the world, and remember, Satan waits till we're down, and then she starts filling our heads with deceit and lies, then you won't find your joy in Yahweh. Yahweh should be our main source of joy. We have to rejoice in Yahweh. Turn to Nehemiah 8:10. That's on page 398. It says, down at the bottom of the verse, it says, "Do not grieve nor sorrow, for your joy in Yahweh is your strength." So keep in mind, everything starts with a thought. Rejoicing starts with a thought. It's your choice. And with this, I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. The title of my speech today is "A Light to the World." Now, as we look around the world today, we see the many problems that they face. We see, the children in war-torn countries scared for their lives. We see the refugees who are homeless. We see the devastation of natural disasters that come from sin. And, of course, we see the devastation of war and the soon-coming nuclear war. So thousands and hundreds of thousands of people live these lives every day. And we are here in the house of Yahweh living our lives. And this feast we've really talked about rejoicing and the reasons that we have to rejoice. But I stopped and think, does the world and all these people who are suffering, do they have a reason to rejoice? Because in their minds, they see no hope. They see no reason to live, and they grope in the darkness. If you turn to Matthew 5, verse 14, it says, "You are the light of the world. A city which is set on a hill cannot be hidden." In verse 16, "Let your light so shine before men, so they may see your righteous works and glorify your Father who is in heaven." So the word "your" really stuck out to me in verse 16. Because in order for us to shine light on those who are in the darkness, we must first become that light ourselves. So what is that light? This light is our joy in Yahweh.
So I have a few steps to help us find our joy in Yahweh. And the first step is to be educated. And you think, why be educated? In order for you to understand the importance of something, you must first understand it. Why is this so important? Simply because, like the first speaker said, it's part of the law. It's part of Yahweh's law to rejoice, to keep the feast, and we understand how important it is to Yahweh. The step number 2 is to set your mind in advance. The Peaceful Solution talks a lot about setting our minds in advance, to rejoice even when things don't go your way. When you think about it, we will have, moments that bring us down. We won't always walk around with a smile on our face, but that should never affect our inner joy. If you turn to Hebrews 2, verse 18, Hebrews 2, verse 18, it says, "For in that he himself has suffered, being tempted, tested, and tried, he is able to help those who are being tempted." So when you think about this, set our minds in advance that we're going to go through things. Why? So we can help others, so we can be able to teach others how to cope with these things as well. The next step, and very important step, is to always think positively and to find what's right in the worst of the situation. And a great example is, recently we've had a lot of hurricanes, a lot of natural disasters, and there are few people, they lost everything they've had. They've lost their homes, they've lost their businesses, they've lost everything they've worked hard to get. But what's the positive thing in that situation? They have their lives, and they can be thankful that they have their lives. So think about it. Do you have a home to go home to? Do you have electricity? Do you have water? All of these things are things that many people around the world don't have. So has Yahweh failed you? No. So can you rejoice in him? Yes. Our joy in Yahweh should be our core and our strength and what keeps us going. And in Psalms 30, verse 5, Psalms 30, verse 5, it says, "For his anger endures only a moment, but in his honor is life. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." So finding our joy in Yahweh is how? Through praying, through studying, through getting yourself involved in the work, and by constantly making ourselves ready and available to be part of Yahweh's work. And the last step, and most important step, is to be patient. Learning to rejoice and growing is a process. It's not going to occur overnight. So I want you to go back. Remember when you first came to Yahweh's house. What brought you joy? Did you know the meaning of true joy? Has your joy in Yahweh increased or decreased? Overcoming, that should bring us joy. Our process of learning to get along with one another, overcoming small steps to becoming more like Yahweh, that should be our motivation and our joy. In Ecclesiastes 5:10, it says that he who searches after silver will never be satisfied. They're always going to continue to look and continue to search. But do they know what they're searching for? No. The reason they continue to search is because they don't have the one person that they need. Who is that? Yahweh. Have you ever stopped to think why we have this theme for the feast? The reason is because to rejoice is vital to your salvation. Yahweh knew that we would have tests and trials. He knew we would have challenges. He knew things wouldn't go our way. And like one of the speakers said, he planned this out from the very beginning. So his backup plan was to give us his laws. He said, I'm going to command you to come to a place. I'm going to give you everything you need, and there I'm going to tell you to rejoice. In 2 Chronicles 7, verse 16, 2 Chronicles 7, verse 16, it says, "For now I have chosen and sanctified this house, so my name may be there forever, and my eyes and heart will be there perpetually, at the time of Yahweh's ordained weekly Sabbaths and feast days." So Yahweh's here with us. His eyes and his heart are here. So what does he want to see? He wants to see us rejoicing. He wants to see us enjoying the feast, and he wants to see us be putting his laws on and becoming who we are. And as I was going through my speech, I was going through the book of Yisrayl and trying to understand what rejoicing truly is. And constantly, over and over and over, and it would take my whole speech if I would read you all the quotes, he consistently said, learning the laws of Yahweh, becoming the laws of Yahweh, that's what makes you joyful. So, this feast we focus a lot about what joy is, learning how to rejoice. So going back to my question, what does the world have to rejoice about? They can rejoice in knowing that there's hope and that we are their hope. We're learning what to teach and we're becoming in the likeness of Yahweh. And why are we doing this? So we can be the light to the world that guides them home. And with that, I turn it over to the next speaker.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. So today we're going to take a trip. We're going to make 3 stops before we reach our destination. So our stop number 1 is our thoughts. We need to think thoughts that will help us move on and encourage us and others to do the right thing. We go through many situations in life. We all know we have the answers. Today I'm going to test your knowledge to see in these situations what character trait you will be displaying. So number 1, you're in line at the cafeteria and you place your order. You're waiting. It's taking longer than you expected. Now in every situation you have 2 options. You can either think positively or negatively. So in this situation, you can either choose to complain or you can choose to wait and not complain. If you choose to wait and not complain, what character trait are you displaying? Patience. Great job. The next one. You were given an instruction to complete a job. You did it. As you were done, you find out that you didn't do it properly. And you continue doing over and over until you finish the job completely. What character trait are you demonstrating? Responsibility or being persistent. You stayed with it until you completed the task. Okay, you're a teacher at a school and a child comes up and says, someone stole my sharpener. Instead of going up to the person the child said stole the sharpener saying, why did you steal her sharpener? You go and ask the child, have you seen the child's sharpener? What character trait are you demonstrating? Educated, because you're getting all the facts before you make the decision. So in any situation, we have negative thoughts, and we need to learn to replace them with positive thoughts. We need to stop looking at our test as stumbling blocks and look at our test and see, what lesson is Yahweh trying to teach me from this? Going to our next stop is studying. 2 Timothy 2 verse 15 says, study to show ourselves approved. When we study, we are feeding our mind spiritually. Studying is like our fuel that helps us to see your goal even when you lose sight of it. Studying is something that many have said that we have to learn to love. So if you can all turn to Proverbs chapter 2. It's found on page 497. Proverbs chapter 2, verse 1. And it says, my son, if you accept my word and will treasure my law within you, if you incline your ears to wisdom and apply your mind to understanding. Yes, if you acquire for knowledge and sight and cry aloud for understanding. If you seek after her wisdom if you seek after wisdom as you would for silver and search for her as you would for a hidden treasure. Now, if you look to side note D5, it says, meaning when we seek the knowledge of Yahweh with diligence and care. When we seek the knowledge of Yahweh, when we want to learn and understand the laws of Yahweh, then comes our understanding. And as we learn to love studying and you start understanding the prophecies, there comes your true joy. Pastor has explained to us many times about the increase of technology in Daniel 12 verse 4. And I believe it was about 2 years ago he explained to me and it actually clicked in my mind. It clicked how the lights on the cars was a prophecy of the knowledge being fulfilled. And it brought me so much joy because it has been to explain many times. We've been taught it in many classes, but understanding it was like, as people would say, it would be winning the lottery. It was the joy that filled my heart. So on our trip to Oklahoma, we were able to take the journey that Pastor and his family did, and we were able to see where Pastor was born. We were even able to go on the road where Vernon, sadly, he died. And on the way that we were rehearsing the history of Purcell, which we visited, and the history of Yisrayl Hawkins. And for me, the story of Yisrayl Hawkins is just truly amazing, because now I'm even able to put the picture, I'm able to put the bridge and everything, be able to put the picture and really understand the prophecy more in depth. So it brings me even more joy. And it really helped me understand when Pastor said that you'll find joy when you start understanding Yahweh's way, but more importantly, when you start understanding the prophecies, you can rejoice in studying. And many say that I don't like to read. Well, you know what? The House of Yahweh has provided 2 study games that you can play. You have Bring the Light and you have Run the Race, where you can challenge your mind. So you can challenge yourself, but you also get in the books and make notes. Step number 3, volunteering in the work. Getting involved in the work. Truly from the bottom of my heart, I have to say, the work of Yahweh it's not always easy, but it's something that I love being a part of. We are all in different work areas, and we know that we're all given different assignments, but the joy of completing your assignment is amazing. For me, every day in my work area, it's filled with excitement, struggle, stress, but most importantly, it's filled with joy. Seeing children that you and many other teachers work so hard to train in righteousness, and teaching them how to read and write, and seeing how they understand the prophecies is truly amazing, and it's overwhelming with joy. So now we're at our destination, complete joy. As you've seen in all these situations, we rejoice by using the Peaceable Solution Character Education Program. We use patience, we use self-control, we use determination, we use steadfastness, persistence, and educated. This does not mean that as we go through these situations every day, it will be smooth sailing, because as Exodus 20 verse 20 says, Yahweh is testing and proving us to see where we lie, where we stand in the faith. But by involving ourselves in the work of Yahweh, finding, your place in the studies, looking at our blessings, being thankful, having righteous fellowship with the people who we all have the same goal, which is to come to complete perfection. Being at Yahweh's feast and simply being a part and wanting to remain in Yahweh's house, there lies our true joy. With this, I'll turn over to the next speaker.
Hello, everyone. You may be seated. Have you ever seen a snowflake? Just one snowflake. It's really beautiful, isn't it? But it can disappear when you touch it, or any kind of heat. Now it's the same thing with joy. It can easily disappear. That's why we should value the righteous things that brings us joy, like family, and also being in the house of Yahweh, and Yahweh's laws that brings us protection. And we can maintain the joy so it don't disappear from us is to think positive. Even though things aren't really going your way or the way you planned it, maybe some setbacks, negative thinking isn't going to make it better. It's going to worsen it. And then you're going to start thinking that you're just having a bad day. But you can stop that and think positive. Then realize that the test or the setback wasn't even that bad. Another thing to maintain joy is smile. I know you heard a lot about that. Have you ever been in a room with 1 or 2 people who may be grumpy or even talk to you in a grumpy way? And it probably rubbed off on you and you start to be grumpy as well? Well, don't be. In the Peace of Solution, in the self-control unit, page 81, it says, remember, you only have control over your own behavior. Be determined to not let the wrong behavior of another push your buttons. Remain humble and apologetic. And I seen this quote. It said, if you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours. And if we're joyful, I'm pretty sure we have a lot to spare. Another way we can maintain joy is righteous fellowship. And, during the feast, we're all here. We can go to classes together. We can study together. And we can give each other, positive feedback. And it's important to maintain joy, especially through our tests and trials. And I know it's not an easy thing. But in the third book of Israel, chapter 18, verse 51, Pastor said, it's the sealing of the saints. In verse 1, it says, verse 6, in this you greatly rejoice. Yes, we should rejoice greatly. Yes, we have setbacks. Yahweh says, a righteous man stumbles 7 times, but he gets up and he goes on, but he watches it the next time. I told several people yesterday that I was sure they did the best they could, and I meant that. I'm sure you did the best you could under what I've taught you so far. You're getting the experience and you're finding out how hard it is. You can learn by your mistakes, and this is what you're going to have to do. So even though we go through our tests and our trials, we learn from our mistakes. And that just shows us why we should value our tests and our trials, because we can learn from it. Now, it's important to rejoice. Why? Well, have you ever felt mad or upset, and just because of that, or just because, you're mad or upset, you missed a lot on, you missed out a lot on the things that you could have rejoiced on. For example, Seder night. Well, let me not say Seder night. Actually, before Seder night, it can be a little stressful because, work, you have to go to work. Then after work, you only have a little bit of time to prepare yourself. And, and that night will be feast. So you had to get all the leavening out. You had to make sure you have all your leavening out before sundown, before you get to Seder night. And then your outfit's another whole story. You have to get I know for the woman, but it's you had to get your headscarf ready, your sash, everything ironed. If you don't even have an outfit, you're gonna have to try to get something. And then on top of that, running late. And then not only running late, but then you're very close to being here at the sanctuary, and then you realize you forgot your apron. And it's oh my word, I had to go back home because I'm serving, so I had to get my apron. Well, of course, that occurred to me. And yes, I was upset, because it was a setback for me. And I wanted to get there early and things like that, and because I was upset, it ruined my Seder. And I really like Seder. That's probably one of the highlights in the feast is Seder night. But because I was upset, I ruined it for myself. But I should have thought positive, and I should have let those things go, because that was already done with and over with. And at least I made it to the sanctuary and to rejoice with the family of Yahweh. So don't get too upset, or even if it's not upset, sad, or any feeling, not joy, If you're upset, then don't let that make you miss out on the things that are joyful. And I would like to end with a quote that I seen. It says, enjoy the little things in life, for one day you will look back and realize they were the big things. And with this, I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. Okay, so as you know, throughout this whole feast, we have been learning to rejoice. And how we can only find our joy in Yahweh by not being selfish but serving others, treating others how we'd like to be treated, overcoming, studying, doing the work. These are all the things that we've been learning to put our joy in. But in the midst of all our trials and difficulties and the things we face every day, how can we keep our joy? Not only do we need to know what to put our joy in, how to have joy, how to rejoice, but we need to remember how to maintain it. We are all striving to rejoice always. But as long as we are here in the house of Yahweh, striving to overcome, striving to be perfect, we will experience tests and trials, hardships, or disappointments. And sometimes keeping our joy isn't easy. But if we truly want to rejoice, always, as 1 Thessalonians 5:16 says, we must constantly make the choice to rejoice. How many of you have ever started off wanting to do something, and you're really determined, and you're focused at the beginning, and you're really focused, but then as time goes on, situations occurred, circumstances arose, you stopped trying. It kind of fizzled out. Well, this is how I was with rejoicing. I would start off the day and in the morning, and I would be in a really great mood. And then as throughout the day, something wouldn't work, usually my car, or something would occur, someone would say something, but then at the end of the day, I'd find myself being grouchy. And I would think to myself, how did this occur? I was so joyful this morning. But this is how the peaceful solution can help us to rejoice. On page 79 of the character unit, it's talking about our positive character. And once we have it, how do we keep it? To maintain your character, you must constantly make choices that are respectful and compassionate toward yourself and others. Maintaining your positive character means protecting and guarding yourself from influences and choices that could lead to developing negative character traits. Maintaining your character must be done on a daily basis. Sometimes it must be done minute by minute. Maintaining your character requires controlling your thoughts, as well as being prepared to deal with any situation that can compromise your character. It takes effort, commitment, and determination to maintain your positive character. Think of your positive character as your joy in Yahweh, or your rejoicing. Overseer said in his sermon one time that as soon as we stop rejoicing, we're opening the door to sin. When we choose to rejoice, we are resisting the negative influence of Satan to sin. This is how important our rejoicing in Yahweh is. We must consistently make a choice every minute of every day to rejoice, despite anything that occurs. First, by controlling our thoughts, finding the positive in anything that we're going through, and not focusing on what we're going through, but focusing on the promises that Yahweh has for us if we endure. Then set your mind in advance, so you're prepared for any of those situations that could make you stop rejoicing. I came across this quote online about this man who survived the Holocaust, but he was so joyful, and he surprised everyone. And when he was asked why, this is what he said. In spite of the freedoms and liberties that I lost as a child, and with everything the horror of the Holocaust took from me, the one thing that was mine and mine alone, every minute of every hour of every day, was the freedom to choose my attitude. The Nazis could do to me physically whatever they pleased, but they could not tell me how to respond emotionally. And in spite of the nightmare I lived through, I chose to live through it with the attitude of joy. We can all learn from him, because through life we are always going to be faced with difficulties, with tests and trials, but it's up to us exactly how we handle them and what kind of attitude that we have. We can choose to let our test or let the things we go through steal our joy, allow ourselves to become bitter, stop rejoicing, lose out on all the positive things that we have this feast, or we could remain positive, choose to rejoice despite anything we're going through, endure the test, and see all the joyful things that we have to experience this feast. In Romans 5, verse 3 through 5, it reads, "And not only so, but let us also rejoice in our tribulations, because we know that tribulation produces patience, unswerving perseverance, and patience, maturity of character, and character, hope. And hope does not disappoint us, because Yahweh has poured out his love into our minds by the Holy Spirit, which he has given to us." This is what we have to rejoice in, our hope in Yahweh, the peace that his laws brings, and all the promises that we have if we endure. We shouldn't allow our joy to be in circumstances, but within ourselves. Despite whatever we go through, we should not let anything steal our joy. So remember as you go throughout the rest of your feast, to constantly choose to rejoice. Despite anything we go through, we have the power to have a joyful attitude. And with this, I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May I have my first slide, please? Look at this number. This is the number of people killed in the United States alone from gun violence in this year, 2017. Amount of injuries by gun, 24,466. May I have my next slide? Amount of children ages 0 to 11 killed by guns, 563. Think about that number. The leaders and authorities are scrambling to find answers. What should we do about this? Should we ban guns or not? Should we do background checks? How do we keep guns away from crazy people? How do we know if they're crazy or not? Sisters, I want to show you another number. Does anyone want to guess what this number is? This is the number from the year 2017, January 1st, until yesterday. This is the number of babies murdered. Abortion. Look at the difference. 563 children killed by guns. The leaders are going crazy looking for answers. 844,853 babies murdered. And what are they saying? The leader's response is, it's her body. It's her choice. She can do whatever she wants with her body. And the fancy scientists and doctors, they say, oh, that fetus didn't have life. It's just a fetus. Overseer Yisrayl Hawkins, the greatest teacher in the world, said, and I quote, "You stupid idiot. What made you think you had to kill it if it wasn't alive?" Thank you. What made you think you had to kill the baby if it wasn't already alive? Someone said to me yesterday, I think you're obsessing. I don't think I'm obsessing over 844,853 babies murdered. Every 30 seconds, another innocent baby is being murdered. And I'm not talking about accidents. I'm not talking about miscarriage. I'm talking about purposeful murder. If you go on PlannedParenthood.com, they'll give you a very easy way to murder your baby. It only takes 10 minutes. They'll give you a pill, and it works up to 10 weeks of pregnancy. You can kill your baby in the comfort of your own home. Sisters, I'm sorry that you had a rough morning. I'm sorry that you were treated unfairly. I'm sorry you were yelled at. I know all those things occurred to me too. The question was, how did the peaceful solution help you to rejoice? Can I tell you why I'm rejoicing today? I'm rejoicing because I was taught by the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, the House of Yahweh, and the greatest teacher in the world not to cold-heartedly murder my baby. Here he is, alive and well. Look at these beautiful mothers and babies. Sisters, we can rejoice because these mothers were taught. And these babies are alive and well. Praise Yahweh. And do you know what else? Thank you, mothers. These little babies are going to be the teachers who will train these confused women and save more babies. These babies are going to teach war no more, murder no more, and 10-minute murders in the comfort of your own home no more. Praise Yahweh. And with that, I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. The title for my portion today is The Opportunity of a Lifetime. I want to ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? What is something that you want to be when you grow up? When you were younger? Even now, we're living for eternity, so you're never too old to learn new things. So what is something that you want to be when you grow up? You want to be, maybe if you're a child, you want to be a fireman. Do you want to be a microbiologist, school teacher, scientist, a principal, a president, a leader of a community, a leader of an entire nation? Or do you want to end world hunger? Do you want to end child abuse? Do you want to put an end to animal abuse? What do you want to be when you grow up? Now, many of the things that I just listed, you have to go to college for many, many years. And you have to get an education. Now, in going along with that, you have to spend thousands of dollars on books that you probably won't need in about 6 months or so. And you'll learn things that you probably won't even use another time in your life. But when you want to have these occupations, if you want to be a scientist, if you want to be a president, if you want to be a lawyer, you're going to put as many hours as it takes into doing that job. You're not going to go out partying late nights with your friends. You're not going to go to the movies. You're not going to go visiting. You're not going to be doing all of these other things that takes away from this job that you want. Because becoming a lawyer is your mission in life. Becoming a president is your mission in life. And nothing else tops it. You won't even eat, and you'll take those nasty little milkshakes that keep you up for hours just so you can keep your eyes open, so you can pass your next exam. That's what we would do for these kind of occupations. But I want you to consider, Yahweh is giving us this exact opportunity. And if we're willing to do it for these occupations and worldly standards, what keeps us from doing it in the house of Yahweh? Yahweh is offering us a front row seat at the greatest academy in the world. We're going to call it Oki's Academy. That's where we get the opportunity to go. And if we're willing to just put forth the effort, you can be anything you want to be. The sky is the limit. And the only thing we have to do is study. Because if you want to be a microbiologist, the only thing you need is the Book of Yahweh. They tell us everything that you need to know. And probably a whole stack of Book of Ezra's to help you understand what the Book of Yahweh is telling us we need to do. That is all that we have to do. And it's so simple because you could probably buy an entire set of Book of Ezra's for what it costs you, one microbiologist book at a college. And you're going to use it for the rest of your life. You'll never not need it. And I want you to keep that in mind as I go. Now, everyone's been giving out steps today, so I'm going to give you 3 more steps. So my 3 steps from the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program today is, first one, is there's a purpose to it all. There's a purpose to it all. And I want to read from the acceptance unit on page 87 in the Peaceful Solution. It is on chapter 5. So if anyone is taking notes, I encourage you to write down the books and the page numbers so you can go through it and verify it for yourself later. Hey, and it's the introduction, and it says to have purpose in life means to have a positive direction into which you want to grow and mature. Knowing your purpose helps you to know what you want to do with your life. How can you tell if there's purpose in someone's life? Look to see if they are motivated and determined. And you can tell by the effort that someone or yourself puts into things whether you're motivated and determined in what you're doing. People with purpose strive to learn all that they can about a particular subject, and they don't limit themselves as to who they learn it from. I added that in there, just so you know. Not just in a classroom, so this requires an education, not just in a classroom, but in life, real life situations. Now, that doesn't mean that because we don't experience things, we can't understand what people are going through. That means that when we go through something, we better understand what it means to go through it. It is up to you to determine your purpose and to make choices that will help you to succeed in achieving your purpose. It says, unless you understand that your life has purpose, you can easily dismiss the effect that your life has on others. And we've heard a lot about that this feast. Consider one another. Don't just think about ourselves rejoicing in what they need to do to make sure that I rejoice every day. What can I do to make sure everyone around me is rejoicing today? And when they're doing the same, you're already taken care of, so you don't have to worry about it. It says, without an appreciation of just how significant you are to your family and friends, you may begin to feel that your life is meaningless and has no value. Never think of yourself as meaningless or unimportant or useless. And I really want you to key in on that. Never think of yourself as meaningless, unimportant, or useless. Everyone has something to contribute and offer to the lives of their family, friends, and society as a whole. You can do whatever you set your mind to do. And again, coming to this Oki Academy, when you want to apply for a job, the one thing you don't have to worry about is a background check. Because Yahweh doesn't care where you came from. He just wants to know, what are you going to do now that you've reached here? Now that you're here, what are you going to do with my laws? Are you going to prove to me that you can handle any job I set for you? Nothing is holding you back. And we have to always, always remember that. The only thing that holds us back from growing or achieving anything in Yahweh's house is ourselves and the amount of time we're willing to put into it. And I want to also, continuing on with this step of purpose, on page 91, it says, where there is meaning, there is purpose. And what did overseer tell us our purpose in the house of Yahweh is? He told us a few weeks ago. He said, this is our main purpose in the house of Yahweh. There's two things. One is to end all sin. That is our purpose. And our second one, he said, was to bring peace to all the world. So if those are our purpose, then we have that down. Now we just need to believe that this is what we want to achieve. And it says everyone's life has purpose. Yes, everyone. The problem is that sometimes people get caught in the daily grind. Everyone knows what the daily grind is, and we all have our own personal cut-out outline plan of what the daily grind is. It says, in other words, they begin to see their daily activities and functions as routine and boring. Your life gets boring when you do the same thing every single day. And the important thing that we always keep in mind is don't ever let your life get boring. Don't let your life get boring. You can do the same thing every single day, and whether the few speakers before me was talking about, you start off joyful in the morning, and by the end of the day, you are completely miserable. And the thing is, everyone around you is miserable with you. So always keeping that in mind. With this purpose that we have, we want to always keep in mind where we're going and how we get there. Step number 2, set goals for yourself. Set goals that you think you can achieve right now, and then goals you want to achieve later on. For example, one goal that I've set for myself and has helped me rejoice at the feast is from the moment the feast started, nothing else existed. Whatever I'm going through before the feast, didn't matter. Whatever I'm going through after the feast, doesn't matter. The feast is the only thing that matters. And I tell you, it helps you to rejoice when you make it from one day at a time, but you're looking towards the future at the same time. Okay, the last one is to set our mind in advance. To set our mind in advance. And the speaker before me talked about that as well. Setting our mind in advance, but preparing for setbacks. Because we know that man can lay plans, but Yahweh already has it set. So what we think is not very important all the time. Right? So prepare for these setbacks. But I also want to bring you this. Just because we're in Yahweh's house, does that mean that we don't suffer the same things that ail everyone else on the face of the planet? No. Everyone goes through the same things. So don't say, why am I going through this? I keep the laws of Yahweh. I don't understand why I'm feeling this way. Well, you're feeling this way, and you're probably feeling slightly depressed sometimes, or you're feeling like the whole world's against you, and you can't handle this, and it's too much for you to bear, and you're just done, and you're going to give up. Because we're still experiencing 6,000 years of sin. So don't think that because we're here, we're not going to feel depressed, or we're not going to get down, so we don't have to worry about rejoicing, because we're keeping the laws, because we have to apply it in our everyday lives. And I want to share this with you. One thing I've learned is growing up in the house of Yahweh, we live in this bubble. And even if you live out of town, you have Yahweh's protection. So I'm going to say you share a bubble with us. But whenever we go out and we mix in with on our missionary and we meet people from all over the world, you see how hopeless the world really is. And you see how they don't have the answers, and you see the confusion, and you see the pain and the suffering that everyone goes through every day. And they're like Yeshua. They have no idea why they're going through it. They have no idea why they have to suffer, because they don't know what they did wrong. So we in the house of Yahweh have to remember, not only do we know why they're suffering, we're the only thing that can stop it. So don't get distracted. Don't get distracted in our day-to-day grind. Don't let the tests and trials tear us down, because it's not just us. It's not just your child. It's not just your family. It's the entire world that is suffering. A child said to me the other day, a 5-year-old, he said, we were sitting down and there was a child who was not paying attention. And he said, can you please sit down and pay attention? You know, the entire creation is waiting on us to follow Yahweh's laws. And I thought, how amazing is it that a child so small can understand what we struggle to make it through every single day. And I want to leave you with this, with our great high priest Yeshua Messiah, when he always instructs us, when they came to him with all of these problems and everything that they were going through, and he said, have you not read? Did you not read that you were going to be going through this? Did you not read that Moshe did this? Did you not read that this was what's going to come upon you? So whenever we're struggling, whenever we're feeling down, remember, the only thing that saves us is studying. Find your joy in studying. I tell you, I started reading The Mark of the Beast again, not reading, but actually studying it. And I tell you, it never said that before when I read it. And then when I read the Unveiling Satan book, I'm like, this is the most amazing book I've ever seen in my entire life. Read it again. If you've read it 1,000,000 times, read it again tomorrow. Read it after the feast. I guarantee you, you'll learn something that strengthens your faith that you never seen there before. And in closing, sisters, I want to remind you as family of Yahweh, don't give it up. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. Do not let it pass you by. And with that, I'll turn over to the next speaker.
Thank you. Everyone may be seated. And they're going to put my poster up for me. Now I want you to think, how can we rejoice? How can the peaceful solution show us to rejoice? Well, it's very simple. It starts with us, and it starts with our thoughts. And you know, when you get up in the morning and you get ready, and you go to get your cup of coffee, and all of a sudden you grab it with 2 fingers, and it goes all over your clothes. Now, we used to say, that was stupid. We got to change that mind thought. We can say, oh, guess I was a little clumsy this morning, wasn't I? And go change your clothes and let go of it. Making sure you always have your clothes a day ahead of time so you won't have to struggle to go find something else. Set it in advance. Now, in our own homes, that's where the real true self comes out. So how do we treat ourselves? How do we rejoice when we're at home? Well, the great thing about it is, in the self-control unit, it tells us how to respond, not only to ourselves, but to others. And on page 107 of the self-control book, it has the stop or the respond acronym. Stopping is the first thing we need to do. It tells you remain calm. Remain calm no matter what the situation. Just calm yourself down, because being calm brings no harm. Then we are to evaluate the situation. Okay, now what do I do? We can evaluate the situation And if it's with someone else, we can calm ourselves down with humbleness and compassion for others. Now, this is not a quick, instant, overnight thing. It's something you have to do on a constant, daily basis. And we can relearn to rejoice every day. We want to stay objective, because to do that, we must be an active listener in order to diffuse whatever situation is negative. We can practice being polite, which brings joy and delight. We can overcome the desire to retaliate. That is something you have to really want to do, because you think about it, it only causes hate when you retaliate. Negate the negative. So that's what we got to eliminate before it's too late. Or we could end up losing a friend because we didn't negate. And be determined to communicate in a positive way. And that's how the peaceful solution can bring into your life step-by-step changes of our own mind, because we have to learn to accept ourselves before we can accept others. And in practicing it, we can and will succeed. Like I said, it's not a quick, instant thing. We're all working, we're all struggling, and we're all trying. And believe it or not, we actually love one another. If you look deep inside yourself, you will see that love that's inside. I once read about a man in a book called Jeremiah. And it talked about this man was docile. And I'm like, what does that mean? So I got my dictionary out to find out, what does that word mean? And when I looked it up, it said someone who is easily trained, easy to manage, and easy to work with. And I thought, wow, I like that word. I want to practice that and be that every day. And you may have to remind me sometimes. You wanted to be docile, remember? We must be careful of the messages we send. And it talks about a lot about our character and our values. We have to overlook each other's shortcomings. We really do. And prepare our mind in advance for those negative things that come towards us. You know, I realized one day when someone would come out and ask me a question about somebody, and I'm like, I've got to be able to answer this. And then it came to my mind. 1 Thessalonians, I want you to write this down. 1 Thessalonians 4:11. And I want you to read what it says, because that's how I learned to answer other people when they would ask me questions that was really none of my business. And I learned to tell them, you go home and you read 1 Thessalonians 4:11, and you'll have your answer from me. Now, we have to learn to truly accept ourselves before we can accept our neighbors. We have to educate ourselves, and the Peaceful Solution has a step-by-step program to show us how. It begins in the character book with our attitude and behavior. We can't change anyone but ourselves. And we have to have that desire to want to change and learn to control ourselves, learn to control our emotions. And we can do that every morning when we wake up. When the alarm goes off, wow, I've been allowed another day. Get up and be thankful about it. Wow, I actually heard the alarm. I can hear. I reached over to touch the alarm. I can feel, I can touch. Be thankful for these things. And we can rejoice in the Peaceful Solution There is a purpose in life. And I want to read a poem that is on page 104 in the acceptance book. And I love this poem because it has a lot of meaning in it. It said, life is a journey. With purpose in life, we can succeed. Of negative conformity, we must heed. For life is a journey that we must take, based on our character and decisions we make. With a smile, we can ease the burden of another's mind. With strong shoulders, we can help put those troubles behind. We breathe every day without even a thought. How we choose to relate to one another can make a difference between others. Sisters, we can do it. Our journey is full of those in need. There's always somebody in need that we can help. And when we go out on the missionary, we can bring peace by planting those seeds of kindness and truth, taught far, and it has reached very far out into the world and near, right here. It can change the heart and mind everywhere. But you know, it has to start with an individual who loves and cares. Life is a journey that we are privileged to take. It's full of treasures. How many of you remember Exodus 19:5? You will be a special treasure to me. Full of treasures, hope, and friends we can make. It all depends on how we treat one another. And sometimes we may, thinking when we open a door that it's someone else there, and it might be another person. We have to think to be careful what we say, because we could joke with someone else, but some people you cannot. And we don't want to hurt anyone. There's enough hurt and pain in the world already. So, do you agree? With a peaceful solution, step by step, we can make it. There is a purpose in life. And with this, I turn it over to the next teacher.
Shalom, righteous saints of Yahweh. Before you sit, I want you to look at one another and give yourselves each other a nice smile gift. Great. All right, now you may be seated. Wonderful. I liked how the speaker before us said, if you see someone who isn't smiling, just give them one of yours. So you just all gave one another a smile. That's wonderful. The title of my little speech today is Righteous Education Brings Joy. And I want to share a story with you about one of our Skype classes. In our very first class with an attorney, we were in the page, character unit on page 8 about moral values, talking about attitudes and behaviors, about our life and property and possessions and environment. And we got to the point about telling that you should respect all life. And she said, What? What? The people that come into my court are scumbags. They don't deserve respect. Now, she was serious. She called them scumbags, and she said they don't deserve respect. So we had a very lively conversation about that. And she came to realize by the end of our conversation that those people were lacking one thing. Can you guess what it is? Education. You don't know what they have gone through in their lives before they walked into that courtroom. So the access to the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program helps us to realize our own value. Every one of us in here have value. Everyone around the world, anyone who has ever been born has value. Once we can realize we have value in ourselves, the Peaceful Solution teaches us that we can value others. And that's a monumental step, because that's one of the things that separates the Peaceful Solution from all other character education programs. First of all, it's character versus personality, but second, that all people deserve respect. And we've had teachers that say, I'm not about to respect those students until they respect me first. And they really feel that inside of them. How did they learn that? They were taught by society. They were lacking the Peaceful Solution character education program. So we're really a group of people here that are trying to practice the Peaceful Solution character education program, but we're still a little bit off. Anybody feel that offness? I know I have my moments too. But in the self-control unit, introduction page XVII, it says, these lessons are designed only for the purpose of developing the student's character. That's our whole purpose. Our purpose in life is to develop this character, positive character. So they teach proper, acceptable character education in a way that will penetrate and change the hearts and mind of a student, of an adult, of a teacher, of a student, of anyone who is learning it. This program will produce the result that society desires to see. Now, society wants that. They just don't want the way that gets them there. They keep rejecting it, but they realize one day they're going to realize that it's right there in their hands, and we will be ready as teachers, of instructors of the Peaceful Solution, that we can hand them this program and say, this is what will change your heart and your mind. And I know we had a sermon a while back that someone mentioned about they could feel that change in the heart. Did anyone ever notice that as well? I could really relate to that, because you see those changes in our own lives. Yes, let's clap for one another. So when you look at that word penetrate, it means to succeed in bringing a way into or through a thing. And again, our heart and our mind. In this case, it's the heart and the mind that we're changing into a more flexible, moldable, workable, peaceable, and then the result is joyful person, right? So the Peaceful Solution is converting this whole person into, it's the simple person that's uneducated into a wise person that comes through character education. I have my little basket. Many of you are familiar with my yellow basket. And inside, it's not a big lemon. It may look like a big lemon, but it's going to do the same effect. Now, I'm not brave enough to get up here and blow this up in front of you, because I'd probably look like a chipmunk you know how you try and blow a balloon and it's hard to get it going? So I did this in my own little privacy. But when we're going through our tests and our struggles, when our overseer said about being squeezed, I thought of a balloon. Now, if I take this, I can see somebody's already covering their ears. If I just hold this up, you're getting a little nervous, right? Now, if I take this and I start squeezing on it, look at your faces. You're all like cringing. That's what we feel like when we're going through our test. Anybody cringe? I feel that cringe inside. Oh, no, I'm being squeezed tight. And we don't want to be the ones that pop. Someone came up to me the other day and she said, are you going to be one of those that's left here at the end? And I had to think about that. It really took an impact on me. I want to be one of those here. Do you want to be one of those here? We desire to be here. We're going to be squeezed. We are going to be squeezed so tight we don't even sometimes know how we're going to handle it. And we feel like we're going to pop. We really do feel. But as long as we don't pop and we can be flexible, look, heart and mind changing. It's being flexible. It can go to whatever we want it to become. But if we don't pop, we have hope of being in this kingdom. We have hope of remaining in the house of Yahweh forever. So I searched for those words that first mention the Peaceful Solution, and I know we mention it in the Peaceful Solution of the Temple brochure, but this is really connected to the program. So may I have my video clip now, please?
But you're going to feed the rest of the world. That is, you're not going to be out here farming now. You're not going to be hoeing. You're going to be instructing. And that's what you're being trained for now. Instructors, to show the peaceful solution to the rest of the nation. And that's what you're being trained for now. Instructors, to show the peaceful solution to the rest of the nation. for many, many years. It takes many years to clean up the earth, and no, Yahweh is not going to wave a wand or something like this to do it. It's going to be done by hard work.
Thank you. So hard work. Are we afraid of hard work in the house of Yahweh? No. Can we handle being squeezed a bit? Maybe twisted and tried and feel like we're ready to pop? Yes, we can do that. We are ready because Yahweh has trained us. Yisrayl Hawkins is the one who's given us everything we need, every single tool that we can be squeezed as tight as we need, but we are going to endure to the end. So now I have an acronym. I'd like to show you. I had a team effort towards this acronym for rejoicing, because we want to know that the peaceful solution gives us the help, the tools that we need for rejoicing. So we have righteous, education, bringing joy, opportunity, inspiration, and contentment for all eternity. Isn't that what we're all about here? So as we're continuing to learn these programs, and yes, it takes a lot of diligent work. It takes those moments when you feel tired, when you've had a rough day, when you might have a headache, maybe you're cleansing and you feel a little out of sorts, whatever it may be, and we're feeling that squeeze moment. Don't let that stop you from going forward. Don't let that stop you from studying or doing your work or applying yourself or giving your neighbor next to you a smile because you can see that they're struggling a little bit. This is what it's all about, because someone once told me a long time ago, keep a smile on your face because Satan can't stand to be around a smile. Isn't that some wise words? So let us continue to learn to rejoice through the righteous education as instructors who know and are learning the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, which is really the 613 perfect laws of Yahweh, to all nations. We're bringing this to all nations one day. And keep that smile on your face. And at this time, I'd like to welcome with another smile a wonderful teacher in the Peaceful Solution.
Shalom. You may be seated. I would like to start with a question. What do you value? And I want you to focus on the last word, value. So what do you value? In the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, in our intermediate series, our character unit, page 6, it talks about values. What are values? Values are things that we believe in, we feel strongly about. They also play a key role in developing our character. And on page 4 of the character unit as well, it tells us what is our character. Our character defines what is important to us, what we believe in, how we treat others, just as clearly as our faces and our voices define us who we are physically. Now, our character is our integral part of ourselves, right? It's the core of ourselves. So again, I ask you, what do you value? So in that short time that I gave you the definition of value, what were you thinking? Some things may have been your family, your health, your home, your transportation, the house of Yahweh. What about your books? What about the things that you value important should be your what? I want to focus on, it seems to be the theme of our speakers today is education. Where our education lies. How do we get our education? Where does it come from? What tools do we use to build our character? On page 14 in the character unit, we're going to focus on a positive character trait. And the number one is educated. Educated is getting all the facts, not some of the facts, but all the facts, and making sure they are correct before making a decision. Now, do we all do that? You have to be honest with yourself. Sometimes you do, right? But whenever things come your way, whenever you're tested, you're tried, you're rejoicing with that smile on your face, what's the thing that you first think of? Is it others? Is it yourself? Well, right now I want you to think of you.
I want you to think about how you can be a better person to everyone around you. In doing so, we're going to take you on a little trip. As our speaker just spoke about, 25 years ago, our pastor Yisrayl Hawkins had a vision. He had a great vision, right? And his vision began with a what? You can say it exactly. It began with a thought. Everything that we think starts with a thought, right? But it just wasn't a thought to him. It grew. And it became a feeling. And then it became an action. And now we're his reward. Look at this. To know that he thought 25 years ago to bring peace. But, he's always taught Yahweh's laws. And we know that the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program is also a part of the Peaceful Solution and Yahweh's laws. They work hand in hand. And it's very important that we take it to heart. But how do we do that? Do we just come to services on Sabbath? If we feel like coming back for classes, we do. We might go home and take a nap. Is it really that important to keep the Sabbath day? It is, right? Remember, you're training to be leaders, to be teachers. So what are we teaching ourselves at home? What are we teaching others? Because people watch people, true? True, they do, right? And so we need to be the leaders that our pastor Yisrayl Hawkins has taught us to be. He's always working, always. And he's always teaching us, and he's training us. Now, there's many different books that our pastor and overseer has taught us, has written, and has taught through his teachings. Thankfully, we have the Book of Yahweh. We have the books of Israel. I was going to bring them, but I figured it would go too high. So I thought I would just start with one of his greatest collections is the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. So we're going to start with the parenting manual. How many of you are parents? How many of you love to make mistakes with your children? None of us do, right? Well, this is the tool that you don't have to worry about making a mistake anymore. We have our parenting manual. You start training in the womb, and it really, truly works. Then you start with the early learning series. This early learning series, you can teach a child to read before they're 2. You can teach them to make right choices before they're 1 year old. If you diligently teach and train them and talk to them, not baby talk, but talk to them like we are talking now. Remember, that's a little person. In our early learning series, it's called the formative years because it forms. And you're teaching and you're training them by your actions, by your words. Just remember, everything you do, you're building. You're building yourself and you're building your children. Then we have it starts with the kindergarten unit, and then we have our 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And then we have our intermediate series. Our intermediate series is a very important series because this is what we use to teach our certification courses here in Abelin, Texas. And when we do our Skype program, we teach them as well. These are amazing tools because we first learn about our personality and our character, then we learn about our acceptance. And this is a big one, self-control. Self-control is an amazing tool that we practice each and every day, a lot of times every minute of the day. Then we have respect. Now we are in our respect series in our certification course, and we're learning that if somebody doesn't respect us, we don't disrespect them, right? We always respect, no matter what. Because respect is what? That's right, it's the right thing to do. Then we have our responsibility. And then we have our workplace. And these are just a few tools that we use whenever we're teaching this program. But it shouldn't just be a program. It should be our way of life, just like the House of Yahweh is our way of life. And we need to make it real to us. We need to make it real to our children. Because it's very important that we remember the House of Yahweh is our mother. Just like it's a mother's responsibility to go to classes with their children, to be there with their children. That way, if their children has an answer, you share notes with each other. You go home and you practice it. You just don't sit in the sanctuary and be respectful and then when you go home, you're disrespectful. You can't be a hypocrite. Okay? So remember, 2 Timothy 2:15, study to show yourself approved. Our pastor, Yisrayl Hawkins, he studied. He shows himself approved. Are we? I want to encourage everyone to make that your goal, to make that your true goal the rest of this feast, to rejoice in studying. Because like Pastor said, you have to make yourself study. You have to put yourself in a certain spot and make yourself study. Make it real to you. Pastor says, make Yahweh real to you, make the peaceful solution real to you. So much that you do it, and it's such a habit that you always greet someone with a smile. You're always respectful to them. You're kind to them. And here, it's very easy because we all strive and practice the peaceful solution, right? But when you go out in society and you work in the world, they see a difference. They see a difference by your dress, by your language. They can see that you're different. Not that you're peculiar and strange, but that's okay. You can be. But they learn from you simply by the way you talk. That's what our job is. Our job is to be Yisrayl Hawkins and represent the house of Yahweh wherever we go. So remember, the next time you want to use foul language, you want to be disrespectful to someone, you want to be rude, remember who you represent. Remember, if you're doing these things, you need to study more. You need to apply the peaceful solution. You need to apply self-control. You need to keep the laws of Yahweh because there's 2 billion people coming. And everyone that I see here today, we need each and every one of you as teachers. We need to make sure that we're practicing, but we first have to be taught. And make it real. Be there for your children. That's the best thing you can do as a mother, is to educate them in the peaceful solution and the laws of Yahweh. And I want to encourage everyone to remember, go get your books of Israel, your book of Yahweh, the peaceful solution. Apply it. Don't just let them sit on the shelf and say, I'll get to that one day. It may be too late. Now I'll turn it over to our next speaker.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. I want you to consider this for a moment. If it is important to you, you will find a way. If not, you will find an excuse. How many of us have ever been late to a duty or a class, to work or services? Maybe everything was going smoothly and then last minute you spilled coffee on yourself, you got a phone call, or, of course, this one occurs a lot to me, couldn't find your keys. Maybe you overslept or didn't calculate how much time that you would need to get out the door. Maybe we forgot completely about where we were supposed to be and at what time. Did we take the time to call and say, I'm going to be late. I'm sorry. Or I won't be able to be there at all. If so, did you know that you're showing respect? Okay, now let's switch that around a little. What if we are the captain or the supervisor over the area or the job that needs to be done? When someone called, or we had to call them to ask if they were coming, what tone of voice did we use with them? Were we annoyed by their answer? Did we put them down, or did we try to listen to their problem and see if there was a solution that we could help them find? If we did the second part, we were showing respect. The title of my speech today is Let Us Consider. And I want you to remember, if we use those kind words with one another, Proverbs 25:11 says, a fitting word is like apples of gold in settings of silver, right? Now let's look at the definition of respect from none other than the Respect Unit Intermediate Series. And it's found on page 3. Which says, as soon as I get that, to recognize the value of people and things, and to treat them with consideration, care, and concern. Now, I looked up that word consider, and I said, I wonder if that's somewhere defined in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program too, and it was in the same book, in the Respect book, on page 211 in the glossary. And to consider means to think carefully about, to esteem, and to regard. Now, this should make us think about a scripture, sisters, does it? Let's turn to page 949, please. And that is Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24. And let us consider one another, how we may urge one another on toward love and righteous works. Now, there's really great importance to this scripture when we come here to the feast. And I want to quote something our great overseer taught us way back in the Reverencing series in the 4th book of Israel. This is in the Reverence of Yahweh, chapter 9, verses 79 through 81. And he says, he's reading verse 24 of Hebrews 10. He says, let us consider one another. This is what we are here for at the feast, to learn to live together. Consider one another and learn to love one another. You can't learn to love another person unless you live with them. Isn't that true, sisters? There's no way, he says. You have to be here. The disciples and Yeshua went and lived together at these feasts. That is what we're doing now. We're learning to live together, love one another, overcome the problems, overcome the hurts, and the things that cause frustration. Let us consider one another, he says. If you will do this, if you will start considering the other person in whatever you do, if you consider your neighbor, you won't be doing this thing or that thing that might annoy or that might hurt. You will be doing things that are pleasing in their eyes and doing things to make them joyous. You will think of other people besides yourself. And those words of the overseer reminded me of a very important law, positive law number 206, which says, love your neighbor, whether a brother or an enemy, as yourself, which we know is found in Leviticus 19, verse 18. So, we can see the importance of Hebrews 10:24 now, right? Let us consider one another. But there are infinite ways to apply this. Let us consider page 86, back in the Respect unit. And in the middle paragraph there, I'm going to read it to you. It says, have you ever considered how much you rely on others in society to help meet your basic needs? For example, unless you or your parents make all your clothes, grow all your food, and raise your own chickens and cows, you must rely on the clothing and food industry to supply you with these necessary items. Have you ever considered who built the roads you walk on and drive on daily, or the school that you attend? Who makes the products you use on a daily basis, and how do they arrive at the stores where you purchase and use? It can be very easy to take for granted the benefits of living within a society because we can become accustomed to having these products and services ready available to us. And don't we have them ready available to us in the house of Yahweh, sisters? Yes, we do. Why? Because of all of us here, right? And because of the greatest teacher in the world, Yisrayl Hawkins, who had the wisdom to plan out what was needed for us and just make sure that all our needs were met. He certainly has considered all of us. So, in our community, there are many jobs that need to be done in order for everyone to have these needs met, right? But day after day, do we consider how important our part is? Do we realize that it's helping in the great work of Yahweh as a whole? Think about a community meal and all that goes into it. it didn't just start with the cooking and the serving of the food, the setting up for it. It started way back in the planting of the food, the raising of the animals, the caring for them, the preparing of them, planning the meal, ordering the supplies. There's a lot that goes into just that one meal, right? 1 Corinthians chapter 12, I found was very inspiring, and it talks about us, the body. And in your own time, I want you to read the whole thing. It's 1 Corinthians 12 through 27. And just to give you a little bit, it says, "For just as the body is a unity, but yet has many members, and though all its members are many, they are one body. For the body is not one member, but many." In verse 24, it says, "But Yahweh has joined together the body, having given greater honor to that part which lacked, that there should be no schism, no division or splits in the body, that the members should have the same care for one another." There it is again, that definition for respect. That's where our overseer got the definition for respect, isn't it? Right from the book of Yahweh itself. And if one member suffers, who suffers? All the members suffer with it. And if one member is honored, who rejoices? All rejoice with it. Now you are the body of Messiah, and the members in particular. We are individuals, but we make up this wonderful collection of the house of Yahweh. Remember, sisters, in Luke 16:10, he who is faithful in that which is least is also faithful in much. There is no small part in the work of Yahweh, because somewhere along the line, someone else is counting on us to do our part. And yes, this brings joy. It brings joy when we stand in our place. It brings joy to someone. It will put a smile on someone's face when you do the job that you were assigned to do diligently. In Yachanan 15:13, on page 833, it says, "Greater love has no one than this, that one would lay down his life on behalf of his brothers and sisters," right? So if I can put a final thought in your mind, no matter how busy you are, you must take time to make the other person feel important, because we are busy doing this work, aren't we? But never forget your sister is too. So smile at her like you've heard today, and show her how much you value her and how important she is, and give her that great respect for standing in her place. To close, sisters, Yachanan 13:17 says, "If you understand these things, joyful are you when you do them." And at this time, it is my great privilege and honor to turn the services over to the great and mighty priests in Yahweh's house. Praise